Will Hardy said it's going to be hard on Lauri Markkanen this year. It is. We dig into game one, what he got, what he didn't get, and what he's got to get. It's next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Lock, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. Today, we'll look at the 15 shots that Lauri Markkanen got, how he's getting them, how he's going to need to get free, what's going to open things up for him, and what allows Lauri Markkanen to be the 26-point-a-game or more player that he was a year ago, because I think he's got a step in him still. Then we'll look at the Clippers. They're coming back from a reckoning of last year where their defense was great for years, fell apart, and they blasted the Portland Trail Blazers in the opener. What do the Jazz have upon them tonight for a 7:30 start? And then our first edition of Late Game Watch. Boston Celtics, New York Knicks look, Atlanta versus Charlotte look, Lakers versus Phoenix look, all for you from the games. I didn't get to all of them yesterday, hoped to, but did not. So that's the plan for today. I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for all that made Locked on Jazz their first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps as well as YouTube. And to the everydayers, you rock. Thank you very much for being an everydayer and being a part of our show. Our YouTube question of the day pops right on out is, what do you think the Clippers can do if they are, where do you think they can finish in the West if they are healthy? Hit me on DLock09 on X as well on that if you're not watching on YouTube. By the way, on the social, so DLock09 on Instagram, I believe that's my TikTok as well, Snap as well, and then on Twitter. So all of those available for you. Usually a shoot-around report for you each day, followed by a pregame report with Ron Boone and a postgame report. So 3 reports for you throughout the day on any game day, usually one on off day as well. So follow me on all of my socials as well. All right. Will Hardy said it. Like, it's going to be tough on Lauri this year. I'm not entirely sure that it's going to be tougher on Lauri than it really was last year, right? I don't feel like people didn't pay attention to Lauri last year. So let me make sure that that is clear. Certainly there's going to be a larger anticipation of, people coming in to get him. And I think the supporting cast around him does not have Mike Conley, does not have a shooter like Malik Beasley, does not have some of those aspects that we traded last year. It is, he scored 19 the other night. And in the year before, I believe it was 66 games that he played, he scored 19 or fewer in 14 of the 66 games. So that actually was really the tribute I would say to him last year, is that he went over 20 almost all the time. Like, that's really remarkable. He went over 20, 80% of the time last year. So it was only 21% of the time last year that he actually scored less than 20 points like he did in the opener. He did it in the opener last year against Denver. And then as the year went on, and then once he really kind of established himself as the guy, there was an entire stretch where he, I believe, won about 20 straight games it was, but scoring 20 or more. And I think he'll get there again. But there are some things to it. One is their ball has got to swing. Like, Lauri's going to get a lot of his stuff early, but he's also going to get some stuff on swing. He got one corner 3 the other night where the ball came all the way around to him. And we've got to be able to space the floor well enough so that he can push the defense, and if someone pushes the defense, drives it, spaces out well enough that it comes around to him and he gets something off that action. He cannot be getting all of his stuff isolation standstill. He had a very good year overall in isolation last year. It got less good as the year went on. The other night, I wouldn't worry about it. The only number I would worry about the other night is 15. That's not enough shots. So that would be my only comment. Now, last year, again, he played 66 games, and in 40 of the 66 games, he took more than 15 shots. So that would be the number that I would want to keep an eye on more than anything else, is that he's able to do that. Okay. So in 60% of the games last year, he took more than 15 shots. 14 shots is 15 shots. That's not enough for him. And that's probably like the first thing about the other day. And that's where boom, boom, swing, get it in. He needs to be between, frankly, 18 and 22, 23 shots a night. That's where he's so efficient. He's so good. That's what we have to have. If you look at his opening shots of the night, they run a Spain pick and roll early, Spain pick and roll where there's a pick and roll. And then as the big rolls, somebody comes to the back and sets a pick on the big man. And then there was Lauri. Lauri set that pick, and Lauri popped out. They didn't guard it well at all. He just missed the shot. Then Will called a play for him. Okay, so you're going to have some of that where he comes in, catches on a curl at the very top. It's kind of the old Gordon Hayward play that Quinn used to run, where you're running away from the basket, get a pick, catch, and you curl back for either a three or you turn. He got an ISO prayer that wasn't great, and then he got a flip from JC and some action. So these, you can see that, like, okay, those are all set plays that are kind of for Lauri, like in a lot of it. The one ISO prayer wasn't. But three of the first four were, and even the fourth out of the next one's an ISO fadeaway in the post. So for early, Will's running plays for him, getting him involved, and he's getting the shot. So that's really good. The concern would be you start running plays for him, and we didn't execute particularly well the other night, and he's not getting looks. He then goes transition coast to coast on his own. He then gets an alley-oop from Taylor Horton-Tucker. So 2 of his early field goals in his first 7 attempts are just in transition. One he self-creates, one Taylor finds him. Then he does some good stuff. He plays a pick and roll with Jordan Clarkson, and he slips the pick. They think he's going to pop, so he gets on the downside, basket side of his defender, he takes it, just doesn't finish. Then we get a swing three for a right corner three. Then he flares off an action where he actually this was interesting. He brought the ball up through the elbow. They picked his man. He flared out for a shot. It's kind of it's a little Terry Stotts, what used to run for Dame Lillard. Then he got his slice cut. Now, this was the one, and he missed it. He came slice cut left to right, and he missed it. This is the one he used to get all the time last year. We used to get him slicing to the basket or coming off a pin down off-ball screen where they often ended up having to switch to a smaller defender. This is one where I think teams are going to adjust and be prepared for it, and maybe start sometimes with a smaller defender on Lauri, so that when he does do this, that teams actually know what to do and how to react to that. So I think that would be my first kind of comment there, is that's the one to watch. Does Lauri get the slice baskets where he's kind of the lifted guy and we're spaced well and the middle of the floor is open and he slices it and he's so big and so powerful that he's able to get that basket? He only got 1 attempt off that the other night. That's probably too few. But when we say like 1, honestly, it probably means that like we're talking like when I say like, we're probably talking 2, maybe 3, like not like 6. Last year on off-ball screens, he had the 12th most off-ball screens in the league. And if you looked at it per game, he had the 9th most off-ball screens in the league. Only Klay Thompson, Bradley Beal, Brandon Ingram, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, CJ McCollum, Jalen Green, and Jordan Clarkson had more. So Jordan and Lauri really lived everything off-ball screens. Lauri got almost nothing in game 1 off-ball screens. You could kind of say that one shot, the third shot of the game, second shot of the game, where he comes up the free throw line going the wrong direction, gets a pick, curls, and catches is an off-ball screen. But nothing off pin downs out of the corner. That didn't materialize the way it usually does. I'm not sure why. They ran a nice, I mentioned the flare, the slice cut. He then gets another fast break. Kind of runs it himself. Very well done. Coast to coast again, misses. Then he has a one-on-one left side step back 3, which is money. And then he misses. He goes one-on-one and misses in the free throw line, kind of takes a bad shot, isolation. He's just still not that on balance on some of his one-on-one moves. So if you look at the night, he gets 6 field goals. 3 of them are in transition. One's off a really nice downhill play with JC from the top. One's off the offense swinging it around in the half-court set. Do you have 6 or do you have 5? And the third one, he should have, and then he has a one-on-one where he's just one-on-one on the outside. They give him too much space, and he hits a 3. So out of the half-court offense, he really got 1 set play basket, which would, I'd say, the flip to Jordan, and he got 1 good action basket out of the roster, out of the team. If he's going to have, this is on him a little bit. He didn't make some of the shots he usually makes because they did run plenty of set play opportunities for him. Less as the game went on did he get opportunities out of set plays, though. So there's going to have to be more. He's going to have to get more stuff out of set plays, but he's also just going to have to get more stuff out of the natural action of a game from his teammates. And there just wasn't enough of that. We threw about 260 passes the other night, which is not a huge amount. He did, to his credit, right? He gets 1, 2, 3, 4 transition opportunities by just running the floor. That's a pretty high amount. You only get like 10 or 12 a night. So to his credit, he created transition really well. He did that fabulously. And did a really, really good job of that. His one-on-one game, he wasn't great. But it is going to be tough, but it's a little bit how we're going to get stuff. Okay? The Clippers. I find them fascinating. I don't know if I want to, but I do kind of believe. So let's talk about it. We're just getting started here on Locked On Jazz. We'll be talking about the Clips and what you believe and how the Jazz have to combat them tonight as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Dave. Really interesting company and opportunity for you in Dave. Dave does gives you some financial freedom would probably the best way I could describe it. So let me explain to you how Dave really works and what it does for you. So Dave is an app, and it's a way for you to get financial help. So Dave can get you cash when you need a hand between paychecks, help build your credit by settling extra cash advances on time. So a bunch of things that where Dave can really kind of, one, obviously assist you if you're in a little bit of a bind, but also can give you the opportunity to find a way to give yourself a little bit more financial freedom. So here's how it works. You download the Dave app. It's a banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. And when you download Dave, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes less, no credit card, no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest, and then you settle up later. Extra cash gives you more money to buy groceries, fill your tank, finally get your car repaired, or catch up on bills without having to wait to your next paycheck. So download Dave today at dave.com/lockedonnba. That's dave.com/lockedonnba. And you get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit card, no late fees. Download the Dave app now and go to dave.com/lockedonnba. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria, instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Today's show is also brought to you by our good friends over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs, over nearly 90 years in Utah, of giving you no regrets experience. And the lineup of the Hyundai car, just incredible. I was just driving yesterday and saw the Sonata. It's such a pretty car. The Sonata and the Lantras are the sedans. They won every award imaginable a few years ago. Now their electric cars are taking the award. The Ioniq 5 was the Motor Trend SUV of the year, and the Ioniq 6, which I saw my first one in the wild the other day. I was so jealous. It was red. It was super cool. Is the car of the year. It's all at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. So feel free to email me at dlock09@gmail.com if you're out looking for a car, and let's get you that VIP experience at Murdoch Hyundai. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. I do greatly appreciate you. Have you signed up for Jazz Plus yet? You can get the Jazz game tonight. If you have Roku or Apple TV, I think it is, you can just download the Jazz app and watch it. My wife's been doing it. Completely seamless. Just $125 a season. So get the Jazz tonight against the LA Clippers. And what do the Jazz need to do against the Clippers? Well, here's what's so interesting about the Clippers. They have this incredible length. They're starting Robert Covington, who really earned his starting spot in Hawaii, frankly, and Seattle for the way he played. And boy, did we struggle offensively against them in Hawaii and Seattle. It'll be interesting to see whether that parlays at all. I have no idea, frankly, if that has anything to do with how a regular season game will go. But here's the thing about the Clippers that's really interesting. Here's their defensive ratings for the last 4 years. They were the 5th best defensive team, the 8th best defensive team, the 7th best defensive team, and then last year they were the 18th. Like, out of nowhere, they were the 18th ranked defensive team in the NBA. So this is super interesting because some of it's Kawhi Leonard and Paul George were hurt some last year, but it wasn't that bad, right? Like, Kawhi Leonard played 1,700 minutes and Paul George played 1,900 minutes. And so, like, what was going on with them defensively? Now, when you look at their numbers last year, the guy, like, when Terrence Mann was on, they weren't as good defensively. When Marcus Morris, they weren't on as good defensively. But it was actually, like, it wasn't one of these things where you're like, oh, well, when Kawhi was on, they were just unbelievable. When Paul George was on, they were unbelievable. When other guys got hurt, it's actually not that true. Like, they really were pretty even all the way across the board. The only guy who really had a massively negative defensive impact on them was Eric Gordon, who's now on the Suns. And some of their younger players who played as the year went on. But of their major minutes guys, they were kind of the same whether or not Zubac was on the floor or not. They were a little better when Paul George was on, but not a lot. They're about the same when Marcus Morris and Terrence Mann. They were a little better, 1.2 points per 100 possessions when Kawhi was on, but not a great deal. They literally just kind of stopped defending as a team last year, which is just funky, frankly, and makes you wonder what they can do this year. It makes me a little bullish on them, actually. I just think it's a little bit of an outlier. Like, you wonder, did they suddenly have unlucky shooting? A little bit. Teams, they went from being the 6th, 8th, 5th best team in the NBA against the 3 to the 22nd. Teams suddenly shot 37% on threes. On non-corner threes, teams shot 37% against them last year on above the break threes. That's way higher than league average. It's about 3%. They may have literally just gotten a bit unlucky. Or they were playing with a little less length and guys hit shots. Kind of an unnatural amount of long mid-range jumpers went in against them last year, 55%. There could be an argument that simply what happened to them last year is that they got unlucky and they slid to 18th. I don't really buy it. They stopped forcing turnovers, which they've never done a lot of. Their team shot better against them, and their free throw rate was great. They didn't foul. And they did defensive rebounds. So the one thing that was really different was their effective field goal percentage. There is a chance. I know it sounds crazy. They just got unlucky for an entire year. The sample size is actually such that could happen. It happens to teams. So what do the Jazz do to combat the Clippers? Well, first thing is they played Portland, and Portland was tied with the New Zealand Breakers for like 3 quarters in the preseason, and I think that's really telling. So they had 132 offensive rating, and they absolutely, stymied them. It was a joke. When I watched that game, it was a joke. Portland could not score. So we've got to space. The spacing we had the other night was really bad. We can criticize Colin Taylor all the time, but watch when they, if you want to, because that seems to be the end thing, and they didn't have good games. But when you watch them drive the other night, when they went into the lane, someone was always on them almost immediately. Some big. Walker was in the dunker, the guy came at him. John Collins was in the corner, that guy came off. We've got to be able to make the decision that if that guy's coming, the ball's got to come out of our guard's hands. Probably one step past the free throw line is where that decision has to be made. A little earlier than they're making it. To get rid of the ball and get open, and then the ball can start swinging. The second thing is you hear the phrase 0.5 a lot. We have a lot of guys that didn't 0.5 the other night. In other words, ball comes to you. Know what you're going to do with it before you get it. Colin, if you want to drive, but don't sit there for a second, look around, and then decide. It allows the defense to get back. And if you do that against this team, they'll throttle you. So in the first half the other night, the Portland Trailblazers shot 19 of 46, 41%, and 3 of 14 from 3. Anthony Simons had 2 of them. Their offensive rating in the first half of that game was a 90.4. They did not move the basketball. Their first quarter offensive rating was a 74. I mean, it was a little nutty how they just could. It was totally looked like high school versus junior varsity. They went 8 of 23, 1 of 8 from 3. And the Clippers, by the way, the Blazers roster is Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, Robert Williams, Shaden Sharp, Malcolm Brogdon, Matisse Thybulle. Like, that team shouldn't just not be able to score. The Clippers, on the other hand, got rolling in the second quarter. This game was over by halftime. They were up 30 at one point. At the half, they were up 67-47. It was done. Clippers at halftime were shooting 57% from the field and 50% from three. And Russ was good. He had 7 assists in the first half, just 3 turnovers. And Kawhi was relatively quiet. He scored 3 of 7. Paul George was loud. He had 14. They're going to play 24 minutes of center this year. They're playing Zubac and Plumlee at center. So they had 8 offensive rebounds in the first half on their 20 misses against the Blazers. It's 40%. So we've really got it on the defensive end, clear the glass, and then we got to go a little bit. Like, you just don't get that many transition possessions. And one thing I think Will's kind of come to an honest realization about is like, hey, if it's after a make, let's get into structure, let's set a play, let's run it correctly, and we got to do that. And then the flip side of that is, if it's off a miss, let's go. And that's where Lauri did a really nice job the other night in getting those transition possessions. So keys tonight. One is you've got to keep the ball popping, because if you let their length set, you're dead. 2, you've got to rebound so that you can get out when they do miss and make some plays. 3, they're going to play 48 minutes of center. So how do we combat that? Walker's got to have a pretty good game, and what are we doing in those other minutes? And then the last thing is, can we spread a floor? We're trying so hard with 4 guards in the center. Can we spread a floor so that when those guys drive downhill, they actually have some space and see some things? Okay. We'll do late game watch here. I'll introduce you. If you have no idea what the heck late game watch is, I'll tell you what it is here in just a second as we continue on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by our friends over at Jace Medical. The world is uncertain at best. You really don't know what the next crazy thing that could happen is. Unfortunately, if you think about like what's happening right now, and this is, really raw, but like what's happening, man, these people are in lockdown. Well, this might be a case where you need the Jace case. The Jace case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case to add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jace case offers continually working to expand their medication offers, and in their recent efforts, they've launched various different options, including new medicines for you. So here's how it works for Jace case. Jace case sets you up, and you get a quick call with one of their physicians, and you get board-certified physicians, and then you have ongoing care with that physician on any treatment-related questions you need. Don't get caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to take care of themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. So Jace handles everything from the online evaluation to the licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation. It's all at jacemedical.com. You can also get a gift card if you know there's someone out there who needs it, maybe parent, family member, something like that. Go to jacemedical.com and enter the code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at JASEmedical.com. Locked On at JASEmedical.com. What you doing this weekend? You want to get in and have some fun? Do it with Prize Picks. Prize Picks lets you have all the enjoyment you possibly could while watching a ball game, getting a little extra juice, shall we say, with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, whether it's the NFL or the NBA, is the most fun. You can win up to 25% of your money during the season. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less unprojected stats, and place your entry. You're testing your skills against the numbers, not against the experts. So quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, enormous selection of players and stat types are there for you. You can go choose anything from NFL to NBA, and with Prize Picks reboot policy, your entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured for the NFL or college. So go look at Prize Picks right now. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. That's right, first deposit match Up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. If you are new to Locked On, welcome. If you're an everydayer, you probably got a pretty good idea what late game watch is because we did it last year. So what I try to do, I'm behind already, is watch every single NBA game that is within 5 points in the final 5 minutes. I actually start at the 9-minute mark and walk it through because it allows me to watch all 20 players or 18 players that are in teams rotations. And so then we share what's going on. We usually see league trends. Last year, if you recall, Miami was really interesting because they ran all sorts of different stuff all the time. And then all of a sudden they got in the playoffs and they ran all sorts of different stuff. One of the things I learned last year doing this is like, oh, this is like the few minutes of actually translate the playoff basketball. So let's start with the first opening night, Nuggets-Lakers. In this game, LeBron was playing 4 and 5 minute stretches at a time, 6 of them to get to 30 minutes. Last night, they blew that completely out. He played all 12 minutes of the fourth quarter. They were literally so bad when LeBron was off the floor last night that they blasted their entire plan on the second night of the year. These are the things that late game watches tells you. It's super interesting. Reggie Miller was all over it too. They're doing some interesting. The Nuggets have just got so many different options right now. They ran a cool little play where Chris Brown got on the left elbow, and then Joe flashes off the right side. So the Nuggets are running a bunch of offense where the ball gets to one of the elbows, and then they flash through the other elbow. The free throw line and the elbow is the 90-degree angle on the edge of the free throw lines. So they're doing some really interesting stuff, whether it's Jokic to the elbow and someone flashes that way. And so if you think about it, you've already got the defense clogged a little bit because you're in the middle of the floor. And then you're flashing off the elbow, which is pretty tight, but it's really compacting the defense in. And they're doing some neat stuff with that. So they ran a play where Chris Brown got it on the left elbow and Jokic flashes the right elbow. And then the next time, Jokic is on the right side and he then off the elbow and he drives, and then Brown slices through the other elbow for a layup. So really interesting stuff going on there. For the final 5 in this one, the Lakers closed with Russell, Reeves, Prince, LeBron, and Davis. Last night, they closed with Wood. So they're some Darvin Ham showing some adjustability. Denver's just making unreal plays with passes. Jokic at the high elbow splits, becomes a handoff to Murray. And then he comes down the left side and hits a slicing Gordon out of the corner for a dunk. Denver's just bringing a slice from everywhere. They have Jokic up and it allows them to bring cutters behind the whole time. Then Jokic works in the lane, just kicks it out to the right corner for Porter for 3. Their ball is just popping. Their starters look great. They totally know each other. They were brilliant in this game. Let's go to Charlotte, Atlanta. Interesting. I want to watch it because of Quinn. I also think Charlotte's kind of interesting to me. And they're more interesting after watching this. Mark Williams, their first-round draft pick of a year ago out of Duke, is really good. Really, really, really good. Gordon Hayward is kind of a shadow of what he once was, but he's a complementary piece right now to P.J. Washington, LaMelo Ball, and Terry Rozier with Mark Williams as a center. And then I actually thought was a really interesting piece to them. And P.J. Washington had an unbelievable game and Atlanta couldn't make a shot. So there's something there. The other one is the backup center for the Hornets, Nick Richards out of Kentucky, is incredibly active. You got to have those wild activity guys there. But I thought both Mark Williams and then Brandon Miller, the rookie, didn't close for Charlotte, but he makes a sidestep 3 and an on-the-move 3 from the top that were both big time. He has been not talked about because of Scoot and because of Victor. This was impressive. Atlanta's doing some really interesting things defensively. They're playing the pick and roll at the top with LaMelo, kind of knowing they're getting pick and roll with 2 guys, but then the back 3 guys were playing a zone. Trae Young was in that back 3. I think Quinn's doing this to hide Trae Young. I have not talked to Quinn, so I don't know. I'm going to watch it a few more times before I hit anybody up on their staff to find out what they're doing. But it was interesting because they tried to hide Trae Young and they couldn't. Like Atlanta did that, and then somehow Trae Young ended up in the middle, and P.J. Washington's bogarted Trae Young for a basket. They did that again. Then they swung it to the wing, and Terry Rozier suddenly gets Young on him because Young's on the outside of that 3 on the zone and just beats him for a basket. Charlotte goes at Trae Young a 3rd time. Like they went at Trae Young all the time in this game. Charlotte's running an interesting little 3-man at the top. It's LaMelo Ball, P.J. Washington, and Terry Rozier in a 3-man action at the top. That's pretty good, actually. Terry Rozier is really inefficient, but he can really drive it. P.J. Washington's good, and LaMelo makes the right play. And so then Gordon Hayward's just a facilitator for show play breaks down, and Mark Williams is a big, huge beast in the middle who defensively was mammoth in this game. Atlanta's missed every shot imaginable. DeJounte Murray just doesn't make a lot of shots, would be the one thing. Boston, New York. This was fascinating. So Boston's closing with White, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and Porzingis. And then they take Horford out and bring in Jaylen Brown. So then it's White, Drew, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Porzingis. Wow. That five's awesome. I will say it's interesting to me. Drew Holiday just like runs to the corner and stands there. So I don't know how long he's going to be in for that. 2 flopping technicals in this game in the final 8 minutes. Jaylen Brown, we all love Jaylen Brown. We should have signed. We should give him. And you hear Celtic fans are like, eh. Okay, I now know why. Jaylen Brown had the most horrendous 3-play sequence in this game. Telegraphed a bad pass. Got lazy on an inbound pass that got stolen by quickly after a made basket, and then fouled a 3-point shooter, all within 3. And you hear this from Celtic fans all the time, Jaylen's got to focus, and Jaylen's ball handling, and okay, I saw it. Here, Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown are just going to corners now. Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis are on the elbows, a little bit stretched out wide, and then Derek White with the handle, and then they run their actions off of this. So they'll sometimes throw, this is a lot of stuff Miami ran last year. There's a lot of teams that run these kind of elbow sets. Some people call it bull, or Quinn, I guess, calls it bull. Some people call it horns. I don't know what Quinn calls it now. So it's, a lot of people run this. There's a lot of creativity around it. I thought Willie Green in New Orleans ran some of the best of this last year. But so, White's got the handle, and then Tatum came up and set a pick, and White drives on the switch, and now Tatum pops. So, what do you do? And then Kristaps is you're guarding. So if you think about this for a second, Tatum's on the left elbow. Porzingis is on the right elbow. White comes off Tatum. You're switching this. Tatum's going to pop. Brown and Holiday are in the corners. You don't want to leave them. Porzingis pops as well out of that elbow spot. Now Brown's just driving the basket by himself because no one's leaving Porzingis. Pretty powerful stuff. They then ran it where Tatum and Kristaps kind of run off each other, and then one of them comes up and sets a pick for White and then pops for the 3, and Kristaps hits 2 threes out of it. So that's right now Boston's primary set. I don't know how you guard it. It's really good. Isaiah Hartenstein makes a ton of plays for New York. He closed as their center. It was Brunson, Hart, Quickly, Randall, and Hartenstein closing for the Knicks. That's Brunson, Hart, Quickly, Randall, and Hartenstein. And then they bring in RJ Barrett. And frankly, RJ Barrett's a problem for the Knicks. They're better off closing with Hart. They're better off closing with Grimes. But RJ Barrett kind of makes the money. He has to be there. He just doesn't make a lot of shots. He doesn't do a lot for them. He's not very good defensively. It's actually a real problem for them. Brunson and Quickly, small action a lot into a Hartenstein pick and roll. So I'm not sure. They must have seen something where they wanted to get one switch before they got the next. Jason Tatum comes off a ball, they double team him, pop out to Porzingis, wide open 3. It's brutal. Cleveland, Brooklyn, Donovan hits a good 3. I'm going to be quick on this. Just interesting. They were playing I'm not sure who, George Niang, Isaac Okoro, or Max Strus at the center for Cleveland for a lot of this before Mobley checked back in. Strus is incredibly active off the ball, cutting, slicing, making plays, not just a standstill 3-point shooter. Was very impressed by that. So worth keeping an eye on. Brooklyn's moving it, not quite sure how they're getting their possessions. And then last night, I watched the end of the Laker-Phoenix game, and quickly, LeBron was superhuman. It was totally incredible to watch him at 21 years, and the broadcasters were kind of overwhelmed. I thought Durant was just atrociously awful to watch. I guess he didn't have Booker and Beal, but he's just not creating anything for anyone else, and it just seems like he shoots every time. He went 4 of 11 in the fourth quarter. It was kind of gross, actually. It was super gross. That's my takeaway. All right, Jazz and the Clippers tonight. Follow me on DLock09 on Instagram. I'm about to get over 12,000 on Instagram. I've been 11.9 for a long time. It's now bothering me, so could you please follow me on Instagram? On Instagram, on X, DLock09, on Snap, and on TikTok. It's DLock09. Follow me there. Go sign up for Jazz Plus. Jazz Clippers tonight. Talk to you soon.